Thunder echoes over a churning sea, who commands the storms and governs the endless waters in the heart of Chinese myth. The answer lies with four legendary brothers, the celestial dragon kings, each a master of a vast oceanic domain. By the end of this journey, you will know the epic stories of their underwater palaces, their fiery conflicts with gods, and the immense power they wield over our world. We will uncover why they were both feared and revered, and what happened when a rebellious child god challenged their authority. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of a dragon's kingdom? High above the mortal world, in the shimmering realms of the heavens, sat an empire of perfect order. This was the domain of the Jade Emperor, the supreme ruler of the cosmos, who presided over a celestial court so vast and complex it mirrored the earthly imperial bureaucracy. Deities and spirits were not just powerful beings, they were officials with titles, duties, and reports to file. And in this divine government, the four dragon kings held a position of immense responsibility. They were the imperial ministers of all the world's waters, governing the oceans, rivers, lakes, and rains from their four cardinal thrones. Their power was absolute within their domains, yet they were not independent monarchs. They answered directly to the Jade Emperor himself, carrying out his celestial decrees and managing the vital flow of water to the world below. Think of them as the divinely appointed CEOs of the planet's entire hydrological cycle. Their every storm and gentle shower a direct implementation of heavenly policy. This system of divine order meant that a drought or a flood was never just a random act of nature. It was a matter of celestial administration, a decision made in the starry courts above. But of these four celestial ministers, one name echoes most powerfully through the legends. Ao Guang, the Dragon King of the East Sea, was the undisputed leader of his brothers. His domain was the vast blue expanse bordering the ancient heartland of China, a realm of both profound mystery and immediate consequence. From his throne in the legendary Dragon Palace, a structure of living coral and shimmering crystal that pulsed with the very energy of the ocean, Ao Guang commanded not only the tides and creatures of the deep, but also the rains that fed the eastern farmlands. His power was the double-edged sword of life and destruction. A word from him could summon the gentle monsoon that nourished 1,000 rice paddies, or he could unleash a typhoon of unimaginable fury, swallowing entire fleets of ships. The people living along the coast knew their fortunes were tied directly to his mood. A bountiful harvest meant Ao Guang was pleased and fulfilling his heavenly mandate. A devastating storm, however, was a sign of his terrible wrath or a disruption in the celestial bureaucracy above him. He was the closest and most visible of the gods to the common people, a constant, looming presence in the rhythm of their daily lives. His underwater court was said to be a mirror of the Jade Emperor's own, filled with aquatic officials, shrimp soldiers, and crab generals, all managing the intricate affairs of the sea. This was the king who held the fate of millions in his scaled claws, a being of such immense authority that even the other gods tread carefully in his waters. While Ao Guang ruled the temperate eastern waters, his brother Ao Qin commanded a sea of a completely different nature. The South Sea was a world of tropical warmth, where the waters shimmered with a brighter, more intense blue and life flourished in dazzling, almost violent profusion. As the Dragon King of this vibrant domain, Ao Qin's power was intrinsically linked to the southern monsoons, the great seasonal winds that brought life-giving rains and intense, unpredictable storms. His character was said to mirror his environment, more temperamental and fiery than his elder brother. Where Ao Guang's anger might be a calculated, bureaucratic decision, Ao Qin's fury was often portrayed as a sudden, passionate squall, rising from a calm sea with terrifying speed. His connection to the marine life was profound, presiding over coral kingdoms of impossible colors and creatures that seemed more like living jewels than simple fish. The rhythm of his court pulsed to the beat of the southern drums, a place of immense energy and latent power. To the people of the southern coasts, he was the source of both the typhoon that could erase an island from the map and the gentle, warm rain that coaxed their most precious crops from the soil. His moods were written in the sky and felt in the very air, a constant reminder that the most beautiful realms often hold the most volatile hearts. Far to the west, where the waters grew deep and cold, lay the domain of Run. His was a sea of mysteries, bordered by distant, snow-capped mountains and shadowed by long twilights. As the Dragon King of the West Sea, Run governed the great rivers that carved through the continent, all flowing eventually into his vast, silent embrace. His character was as profound and reserved as his realm. While his brothers in the east and south were figures of direct and often dramatic influence, Run was portrayed as a thinker, a sage among dragons. He was the keeper of ancient aquatic secrets, a reclusive figure who preferred the quiet depths of his palace to the bustling drama of the celestial court. His responsibilities were no less vital, however. He managed the water cycle for the entire western expanse, from the mighty, slow-moving rivers to the high-altitude lakes that mirrored the sky. A decision from Run could mean the difference between a river running strong and clear, nourishing the communities along its banks, or it shrinking to a trickle, leaving the land parched. His power was a subtle, constant force, felt in the deep, cold currents and the steady flow from the highlands to the sea. In the stories, he is often the brother sought for his counsel, a voice of calm deliberation when fiery tempers threatened to boil over. What secrets did the dark, silent waters of the West hold, guarded by this most contemplative of kings? Completing the celestial quartet in the frozen north was Shun, a king whose breath was the winter wind itself. His domain, the North Sea, was a realm of eternal twilight and grinding ice, a stark contrast to the vibrant waters of his brothers. Here, the sun was a distant, weak memory, and the landscape was sculpted not by coral or warm currents, but by glaciers and blizzards. Shun commanded the very essence of cold, governing the snows that blanketed the mountains and the frigid currents that flowed from the pole. His power was the slow, inexorable force of winter, the deep freeze that preserved the land in a state of silent waiting. While his brother Kin brought passionate storms, Shun brought a disciplined, unwavering chill that could lock a harbor in ice for months or preserve a harvest under a protective layer of snow. He was often depicted as the most stern and unyielding of the four kings, his demeanor as rigid and majestic as an iceberg. In the grand celestial bureaucracy, his role was crucial, for he controlled the balance of the seasons, holding back the warmth so that the earth could rest and later renew itself. His palace was not a place of colorful gardens, but a fortress of crystal ice, silent and imposing, reflecting a power that was not about creation or destruction, but about absolute, patient control. What must it have been like to stand before such a king, in a throne room where the very air could freeze a word before it was spoken? Beneath the churning waves, hidden from mortal eyes, lay their true seats of power. The Dragon Palace of the East Sea was a metropolis of living architecture, where walls were not built but grown. Towers of crimson coral spiraled toward the sun-dappled surface, and grand avenues were paved with luminous pearls that glowed with a soft, internal light. The very throne room of Guang was carved from a single, colossal piece of crystal, its facets refracting the ocean's light into 1,000 dancing rainbows. This was not merely a home, it was a vault of impossible wonders. Piles of gold coins from sunken treasure ships formed shimmering dunes, and ancient jade artifacts, lost to the world above for centuries, stood as common decorations. But the true heart of the palace was its court, a bustling, chaotic center of aquatic governance. Shrimp soldiers, clad in intricate armor of a balloon shell, patrolled the gates with tiny, serious spears. Crab generals, their shells as hard as iron, clacked their claws in salute as they marched battalions of fish troops through the courtyards. Even the court scribes were present, quick-finned carp diligently recording imperial decrees on scrolls of kelp. Every creature, from the smallest minnow messenger to the great, wise turtle advisors, had a role to play in the administration of the sea. This was a kingdom in constant motion, a mirror of the celestial court above, yet utterly alien in its beauty and complexity. To stand in that crystal throne room was to understand that the Dragon Kings were not just forces of nature, they were emperors of a world as vast and intricate as our own. Yet even the most magnificent palace is defined by the lives within its walls. These Dragon Kings were not solitary rulers, but patriarchs of sprawling, powerful families. Each king had many sons and daughters, a legion of dragon princes and princesses whose own fates were deeply woven into the tapestry of myth. These children were often sent to serve as deities of individual rivers, lakes, and springs across the land, creating a vast, interconnected water bureaucracy that stretched from the mightiest ocean to the smallest mountain stream. A local drought could be the result of a negligent dragon prince failing in his duties, requiring a village to offer prayers and sacrifices not to a distant king, but to their own local water god, who was in essence a member of this celestial royal family. This network of relatives ensured the Dragon King's influence was felt everywhere, tying the most humble well to the grandeur of the undersea palaces. But what was life like for these children, born into such immense power and responsibility? Their stories are filled with adventure, rebellion, and sometimes tragic consequences, reminding us that even divine households are not free from drama. The social structure of the underwater courts was a spectacle of organized chaos, a direct reflection of the Jade Emperor's own celestial administration. Each Dragon King was served by a cabinet of specialized ministers, each a creature perfectly suited to their role. The Prime Minister was often a wise, ancient turtle, his shell etched with the wisdom of millennia, advising the king on matters of state and cosmic law. The chief military commander was typically a giant carp or a powerful sturgeon, a formidable general leading armies of fish and crustaceans. There were ministers of the tides who calculated the pull of the moon, and ministers of rain who coordinated with the cloud dragons in the sky. Court protocol was strict and elaborate, with rituals for everything from the king's morning audience to the reception of a decree from the heavens. Imagine a shrimp herald, his voice a tiny click, announcing the arrival of a celestial messenger, while crab guards snapped to attention in perfect unison. This intricate system showed that the Dragon King's power was not just raw, elemental force, it was a sophisticated, managed authority. Their kingdoms were not wild, untamed places, but highly organized empires operating under a divine mandate, where every creature, from the lowest minnow to the king himself, had a purpose to fulfill. The steady rhythm of the seasons and the very survival of millions depended directly on the moods of these four kings. For the farmers of ancient China, a prayer for rain was not a vague plea to the sky. It was a formal petition sent directly to the celestial ministry of water. When the soil cracked and the crops withered under a relentless sun, entire villages would turn to elaborate rituals to appease the Dragon King of their region. They would offer the finest food, burn precious incense, and stage colorful operas, all in the desperate hope that their devotion would catch the attention of a busy celestial bureaucrat. A successful prayer meant that Ao Guang or one of his brothers had reviewed the request, approved the rainfall quota, and issued a decree to their cloud dragons. The resulting shower was not just weather, it was a delivered order from a divine official. This relationship made the Dragon Kings the most immediate and tangible gods in the lives of common people. Their favor meant life, their neglect meant famine. But their anger was an even more terrifying prospect. A disrespectful act, a broken vow, or a failure to provide adequate offerings could provoke a king's wrath. This was not a mere withholding of rain, but an active punishment. Our kin might unleash a typhoon that flattened coastal villages, while our run could command the rivers to overflow their banks, washing away entire fields. A decision from Ao Shun to extend the winter could doom a spring planting. The line between a natural disaster and a divine reprimand was invisible, and this uncertainty shaped the culture itself. Every flood was a question of what the people had done wrong, every drought a search for a way to make things right with the powerful, temperamental lords of the water. Their power was the fundamental force that animated the ancient world, a constant reminder that humanity lived at the mercy of beings whose decisions were as vast and complex as the oceans they ruled. This delicate balance of fear and reverence was shattered by the defiance of a single child. The calm of the East Sea was broken one day by a young boy playing in the shallows, a figure of immense power and even greater impulsiveness named Neja. Born with the strength of a god and the temper of a wildfire, Neja was splashing in the coastal waves with his celestial artifacts, his magical red armbands and his universal ring. The water churned and roiled with his divine energy, and the tremors from his play shook the very foundations of Ao Guang's palace far below. For the Dragon King, this was not mere childish noise, it was an earthquake of disrespect threatening his royal domain. He dispatched his third son, the dutiful and noble Prince Ao Bing, to the surface to investigate the disturbance and restore order. Ao Bing rose from the depths, a young dragon prince in his own right, expecting to chastise a mortal. But he found Neja, a being who recognized no authority but his own. Words were exchanged, pride was wounded, and a tragic fight erupted. In the heat of the conflict, Neja's universal ring struck a fatal blow, and the noble Ao Bing fell, his dragon form collapsing back into the sea. The death of his son sent a wave of pure, seismic rage through Ao Guang. This was not just a personal tragedy, it was an act of insurrection. A child god had trespassed in his kingdom, defied his command, and murdered his heir. The cosmic order itself had been fractured. Ao Guang rose from his crystal throne, summoning his armies and his brothers. He would march upon the land itself, demanding justice from the heavens and the head of the boy who had slain his son. The sky blackened with storm clouds as the Dragon King's wrath prepared to drown the world. How could a single child possibly stand against the collective fury of the ocean's sovereign? The simmering conflict between celestial authority and rebellious power found its ultimate expression in the great novel Journey to the West. Here, the Monkey King, Sun Wukong, embodied a force of chaos that challenged the very foundations of the Dragon King's ordered world. His most famous encounter began not with a declaration of war, but with a simple, practical need for a weapon. Dissatisfied with the ordinary arms of the mortal world, the arrogant monkey was advised to seek out the legendary ocean-forging pillar, a treasure rumored to reside in the deepest vaults of the East Sea Dragon Palace. He did not send a petition or offer a polite request. Sun Wukong simply used his magic to part the waves and marched, uninvited and unannounced, directly into Ao Guang's crystalline throne room. The sheer audacity of this act sent the entire aquatic court into a panic. Shrimp soldiers scattered and crab generals fumbled their weapons, completely unprepared for a deity who ignored all protocol and celestial decorum. Faced with this unpredictable and powerful intruder, the wise but cautious Ao Guang chose a path of strategic appeasement. He ordered his ministers to bring forth a parade of magnificent weapons from his armory, each one a masterpiece of divine craftsmanship. There were great swords forged from frozen lightning and spears tipped with the teeth of ancient leviathans. Sun Wukong, with his immense strength, would take each one, swing it once, and declare it too light, tossing it aside like a common stick. The Dragon King grew increasingly nervous, realizing no ordinary treasure would satisfy this troublesome guest. It was then that his wise turtle prime minister whispered a suggestion. Deep within the palace lay a great, unmanageable iron pillar, a relic from the time the universe was formed. It was a divine measure once used to calm the floods of the Great Yu, a tool so heavy and immense that no one in the ocean could lift it. Ao Guang, hoping this impossible task would finally rid him of the monkey, led Sun Wukong to the pillar. The moment Sun Wukong laid eyes on the massive dark iron column, he felt a connection. He circled it, touched its cold surface, and to the utter astonishment of the Dragon King and his entire court, he commanded it to shrink. To their disbelief, the pillar obeyed. It shrank from a colossal support beam holding up the ocean itself into a perfectly sized staff that fit snugly in the Monkey King's hand. This was the Rui Jingu Bang, the compliant golden hooped rod, a weapon that could change its size and weight according to its master's will. As Sun Wukong practiced with his new treasure, he revealed its true nature, commanding it to grow so large it nearly pierced the heavens, causing the entire dragon palace to tremble violently. With a triumphant laugh, he took his new staff and left, leaving behind a terrified and humiliated Ao Guang. The Dragon King had not been robbed by stealth, but stripped of a foundational treasure through sheer, overwhelming force, a direct challenge to his authority that he was powerless to stop. This was not the only time the Monkey King would disrupt their aquatic order. Throughout the pilgrim's journey, the Dragon Kings appear as figures of established power who are repeatedly forced to contend with Sun Wukong's chaotic influence. In another key episode, when the Monkey King needed to subdue a powerful fire, it was Ao Qin, the Dragon King of the South Sea, who was summoned not by decree but by Sun Wukong's demand. The fiery-tempered king, who commanded devastating typhoons, found himself taking orders, mustering a downpour to douse flames he had no stake in fighting. These interactions consistently flipped the celestial hierarchy on its head. The Dragon Kings, ministers of the cosmos and masters of the natural world, were reduced to reactive figures, scrambling to manage the fallout from the monkey's adventures. They became supporting characters in his story, their immense power rendered situational and often ineffective against his cleverness and brute strength. How did these proud, ancient beings, used to commanding the reins and ruling vast kingdoms, process this profound shift in their status, from feared sovereigns to reluctant assistants in a grand pilgrimage they never asked to be part of? Their power to unleash the ocean's fury was matched only by their ability to tame it under a higher command. The same waters that could drown the world in the Dragon King's anger were also the medium through which ancient heroes performed their greatest labors. In the foundational myths of China, a great deluge once threatened to wipe humanity from the earth, a chaotic era where the very order of the cosmos seemed to be dissolving. In these stories, the Dragon Kings often appear as the initial source of the catastrophe, their tempers flaring or their celestial mandates misunderstood, causing the rivers to boil over and the seas to swallow the land. Yet this chaos always summoned a response from the heavens, a hero tasked with restoring balance. The most famous of these was Yu the Great, a figure of immense determination and virtue. His mission was not to fight the Dragon Kings, but to enlist them. Commanded by the Jade Emperor himself, Yu the Great approached the chaotic waters as an engineer and a diplomat. He did not wield a weapon to slay the flood dragons, but a compass and a plumb line to direct their power. He traveled to the courts of the Dragon Kings, presenting the celestial decree that authorized his work. In this context, the kings transformed from instigators of disaster into essential partners in a cosmic public works project. Ao Run, the sage of the West Sea, would have guided the flow of the great western rivers, while Ao Guang managed the colossal volume of water emptying into the east. They commanded their dragon children, the deities of individual rivers and streams, to follow Yu's precise channels and to retreat to their designated courses. The legendary ocean-forging pillar that Sun Wukong later stole was said to be a tool Yu used to measure and deepen the riverbeds, a divine instrument that calmed the very waters the Dragon Kings had unleashed. This dual role reveals the true nature of their power. They were not simply forces of good or evil, but immensely powerful bureaucrats whose actions were dictated by the celestial chain of command. A flood could be their independent act of wrath, or it could be a necessary, if destructive, part of a larger heavenly plan that required a hero like Yu to correct. Their essence was the untamed water itself, waiting for a will stronger than their own to give it purpose and shape. What does this tell us about the ancient worldview, where even the most terrifying natural disasters were not random, but part of a grand, if often inscrutable, celestial design? This reverence for the Dragon Kings was carved into the very landscape, in the form of temples that stood as bridges between the human and aquatic worlds. You would find these dedicated shrines perched on dramatic cliffs overlooking the churning sea, or nestled on the banks of a powerful, life-giving river. Their locations were never arbitrary. Each temple was a strategic embassy placed at the frontier of the Dragon King's domain, a physical point of contact where mortals could send their petitions directly into the watery depths. The architecture itself spoke of this connection, with roofs shaped like curling waves and pillars carved with coiling dragon motifs, as if the building were an extension of the palace below. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with incense and quiet supplication. The central figure was often a powerful statue of the local Dragon King, perhaps Ao Guang for an eastern coastal village, or Ao run for a community by a great western river. His painted wooden face would look down upon the villagers who came with their most heartfelt pleas and their most valuable offerings. They would bring freshly caught fish, bowls of the season's first rice, and cups of clear wine, placing them before the statue with deep bows. These were not bribes, but tokens of respect and reminders of a symbiotic relationship. The people were sustaining the god with their devotion, and in return, they trusted he would sustain them with the rains their fields desperately needed. The temple was a constant, tangible reminder that their survival was negotiated at this sacred boundary between land and water. The most profound expressions of this relationship came to life during vibrant public festivals. These were not somber affairs, but massive community celebrations designed to capture the Dragon King's attention through joy and spectacle. Imagine a bustling coastal town during a drought. The air is hot and still, the earth is cracked, and fear is beginning to set in. In response, the entire community mobilizes for a Dragon King procession. They build a magnificent palanquin and place the temple's statue of the dragon inside, carrying him through the streets like a visiting emperor. The sound is deafening, with drums pounding to mimic thunder and firecrackers snapping to ward off evil spirits. Dancers in elaborate dragon costumes weave through the crowds, their long, serpentine bodies moving in a hypnotic rhythm that symbolizes the flowing, life-giving water they are begging for. Operas are performed on temporary stages, telling the very myths of the Dragon King's power and benevolence, reinforcing the stories that gave their world meaning. The entire festival is a collective performance, a desperate and hopeful show put on for a divine audience. The message is clear: look at our devotion, see our celebration in your honor, and remember your duty to us. When the rains finally did come, often just after such a festival, it was seen as a direct response, a successful transaction between a grateful people and a pleased deity. This cycle of ritual and response formed the heartbeat of agricultural life, tying the community's fate to the rhythms of a power far greater than themselves. Even the personal, everyday lives of fishermen and sailors were governed by a complex set of rules meant to avoid the king's wrath. Before setting sail, a captain would always make a small offering at a seaside shrine, perhaps tossing a handful of rice into the waves or pouring a libation of wine. It was a toll paid for safe passage through the Dragon King's domain. On board, certain words were considered taboo, as speaking of disasters or disrespecting the sea could summon them. The ocean was seen as a sovereign territory, and every ship was a guest who had to mind its manners. A sudden squall was not just bad weather, it was a sign that someone on board had offended the local dragon spirit. This deep-seated belief created a culture of constant, mindful interaction with the natural world. The Dragon Kings were not distant myths, they were active participants in daily life, their moods reflected in the water's surface and their judgments felt in the wind. From the grandest temple festival to the quietest prayer of a lone fisherman, The worship of these celestial beings was a continuous dialogue, a centuries-long attempt to find harmony with the uncontrollable forces that governed their world. How did this ancient conversation eventually change as the world modernized and the old gods began to recede from the sky? Their authority was not simply a matter of royal decree, but a function of their incredible, innate magical power. The Dragon Kings were masters of transformation, able to shift their massive, serpentine forms into the shape of elegant human officials. This ability was crucial for their work, allowing them to walk unseen in mortal markets or ascend to the celestial court to take their place among the other gods. In their true draconic form, they were majestic and terrifying, their bodies coiling like rivers through the sky, their scales shimmering with the colors of the deep sea. But when they chose to appear as men, they were figures of immense dignity, often robed in the silks and headdresses of a high-ranking minister. This shape-shifting was more than a disguise. It was a tool of governance, a way to interact with the complex layers of the cosmos on their own terms. Their command over the weather was absolute and intricate. A flick of a claw from Ao Guang could send a squadron of cloud dragons racing across the sky, their forms condensing moisture into a gentle, life-giving rain. A deep, rumbling command from Ao Qin could pull the warm, moist air from the southern sea and spin it into a spiraling typhoon. They did not merely summon storms, they conducted them like a grand symphony, with lightning for percussion and wind for strings. Every raindrop that fell was a note played at their direction, every flash of lightning a punctuation mark in their celestial speech. Their dominion extended to every creature that swam, crawled, or drifted in their domain. A single thought from a Dragon King could send 1 billion fish schooling in a specific direction, or command a legion of loyal crab soldiers to march upon a foe. The giant serpents of the deep and the gentle turtles of the coral gardens all answered to their will, forming a living, breathing extension of their power. This elemental magic was tied directly to the essence of water in all its states. They could draw moisture from the very air, summoning mists and fogs to shroud their palaces. Ao Shun in the frozen north possessed the power to still molecular motion itself, turning raging waves into solid, unbreakable plains of ice with a single, frigid breath. Their connection to the clouds was so profound that they were often called the Lords of the Rain, their bodies sometimes depicted as part dragon and part cloud, symbolizing their role as the bridge between the ocean below and the heavens above. This vast arsenal of abilities made them far more than simple rulers. They were the living, conscious embodiment of the planet's water cycle, their every breath and thought directly influencing the world upon which humanity so precariously depended. This profound connection to life-giving water is why the dragon became the ultimate symbol of benevolent power in the Chinese imagination. Unlike the fire-breathing beasts of Western lore, who often represent chaos and evil to be slain by a night, the Chinese dragon is a divine and auspicious creature, a bringer of rain and a guardian of cosmic order. Its serpentine body moves with the flowing grace of a river, its scales gleam like the surface of a lake under the sun, and its voice is the deep rumble of thunder that precedes a nourishing storm. This dragon is not a monster to be feared and conquered, but a celestial force to be respected and honored, a being whose very nature is intertwined with prosperity and harmony. At the heart of this symbolism lies the concept of Yong, the active, bright, and masculine principle of the universe. The dragon embodies this creative, life-affirming energy. It is the ultimate symbol of imperial authority, so much so that the emperor himself was seen as the human incarnation of the dragon, his throne the dragon throne, and his robes embroidered with the 5-clawed dragon to signify his heavenly mandate to rule. But this symbolism extended far beyond the palace walls. For the common people, the dragon represented the hope for a bountiful harvest, the promise of gentle rains, and the blessing of good fortune. It was a symbol of strength, but also of profound wisdom and the power of transformation, much like the dragon kings who could shift their form and command the elements not through brute force, but through ancient knowledge and celestial decree. You see this in the dragon's traditional associations. It is one of the 4 sacred animals representing the cardinal directions and the season of spring, a time of growth and renewal. Its image adorned everything from temple roofs to festival costumes, not to ward off evil, but to invite its powerful, positive influence into the community. The dragon was and remains a symbol of the universe itself in perfect, dynamic balance. How fascinating that the same mythical creature can be viewed through such different cultural lenses, one as a destructive fiend and the other as a divine, life-sustaining sovereign. This contrast reveals a fundamental difference in worldview, where the Chinese dragon does not stand against humanity, but stands as a powerful partner in the grand, intricate dance of the cosmos. The divine drama of the Dragon Kings did not remain confined to myth, but exploded into 1,000 forms of art, their images saturating the cultural landscape of China for centuries. You can trace their story not through words alone, but through the vivid colors of temple murals and the cool, smooth surfaces of ancient jade. In classical paintings, they are often depicted in their magnificent humanoid forms, robed in the imperial court dress of a Tang or Ming dynasty official, a visual reminder of their place in the celestial bureaucracy. Yet their true nature is always hinted at, a dragon's head emerging from a stately headdress or a scaled tail curling from beneath silken robes. These portraits were not just decoration, they were statements of cosmic order, showing Ao Guang and his brothers as the disciplined, ministerial counterparts to the wild, untamed dragons that coiled around pillars and across porcelain vases. Sculptors carved their likenesses into the very bones of temples, with stone dragons snaking along roof ridges, their heads pointed defiantly toward the sea, acting as both guardians and conduits for the prayers of the people. To stand before these sculptures was to stand at the threshold of their domain, a physical representation of the fragile boundary between the human world and the aquatic empire below. Their tales were immortalized in the vibrant world of Chinese opera, a spectacle of swirling silks and painted faces. On stage, an actor portraying Ao Guang would wear a majestic, elaborate costume, his face painted in specific colors symbolizing his authority and his elemental power. The choreography of his movements would mimic the flowing, powerful undulations of a dragon, his long, flowing sleeves becoming waves and storms. The tragic story of his son, Ao Bing, was a particularly popular operatic theme, the clash with Nezha brought to life with acrobatic combat and haunting, melodic laments that gave emotional weight to the cosmic conflict. These performances were more than entertainment. They were a living, breathing form of worship and cultural memory, ensuring that every generation understood the power and the perils of the world's divine rulers. Even poets, masters of subtlety, wove the Dragon Kings into their verses. They became metaphors for the untamable forces of nature, or symbols of the immense, often inscrutable, power of the imperial court itself. A poet might describe a gathering storm as Ao Qin assembling his armies in the southern sky, or a prolonged drought as a sign of Ao Guang's bureaucratic displeasure. Through this rich tapestry of artistic expression, the Dragon Kings were woven into the very fabric of Chinese identity, their stories told and retold not as distant legends, but as immediate, powerful forces that shaped art, thought, and daily life. What common threads can we find when we look at these countless depictions? And what do these repeated motifs tell us about what the people truly feared and revered in their aquatic sovereigns? 4 brothers, 4 seas, and 4 vastly different expressions of power. Ao Guang of the East was the quintessential administrator, his rule a reflection of the complex, bureaucratic heartland his sea bordered. His leadership was calculated and deliberate, every storm a filed report and every gentle rain a fulfilled decree. This made his wrath all the more terrifying, for it was never a simple emotional outburst, but a cold, judicial punishment delivered from his crystal throne. Contrast this with his southern brother, Ao Qin. The warm, turbulent South Sea shaped a king of passion and sudden fury. Where Ao Guang's decisions were measured, Ao Qin's were instinctual, rising like a squall from a calm sea. His leadership was one of immense energy and volatility, a direct mirror of the monsoons he commanded. He was the untamed heart of the ocean, his benevolence as generous as his storms were devastating. This fiery temperament stood in stark opposition to the deep, contemplative nature of Ao Run in the west. His was a realm of silent depths and flowing rivers, and his personality was that of a sage. Ao Run was the thinker, the counselor who preferred the quiet order of his domain to the drama of the celestial court. His power was subtle, a constant, profound force felt in the steady flow of water from the highlands to the sea, his leadership defined by patience and ancient wisdom. And finally, in the frozen north, Ao Shun completed the quartet with his unyielding discipline. His personality was as rigid and majestic as an iceberg, his leadership a manifestation of absolute control. He did not unleash passionate storms, but commanded the slow, inexorable power of winter itself. His was the strength of patient, silent authority, the power that preserves and holds the world in a state of waiting. Their domains did not just house them, they fundamentally shaped their identities. The vibrant, populous East required a bureaucratic king. The warm, stormy South created a passionate one. The mysterious, flowing West nurtured a sage, and the frozen, silent North demanded a sovereign of absolute control. Together, they formed a complete system, a celestial cabinet where every temperament was represented, and every type of power was necessary to maintain the balance of the world. Beyond the grand epics, the Dragon Kings thrived in the intimate folklore of countless villages. In the mountainous province of Sichuan, far from any ocean, a local tale speaks of a desperate drought. The people prayed not to a distant sea god, but to the Dragon King of their own Min River, a son of Ao Run. When their prayers went unanswered, a brave village woman journeyed to the river's source, a cave behind a thunderous waterfall. There she found the young dragon prince in a deep, enchanted sleep, his slumber causing the river to dwindle. She did not fight him, but sang a lullaby her grandmother had taught her, a song said to be known only to the river dragons. The dragon stirred, awakened by the familiar melody, and the river immediately swelled with fresh, rushing water. This story reveals a world where every local body of water had its own resident dragon deity, a member of the vast royal family who could be approached with the right knowledge and respect. It was a personal relationship built on specific inherited traditions. Along the rocky coast of Fujian, a different kind of story is told. Fishermen there speak of Ao Guang not as a stern bureaucrat, but as a collector of rare beauty. The legend says he once became so enamored with the intricate oyster pearls farmed in a particular bay that he commanded his servants to gather them all. The fishermen, whose livelihoods depended on these pearls, were plunged into despair. Instead of confronting the king, a young pearl diver known for her courage swam deep into a sacred undersea grotto. She found not the king, but his eldest daughter, who was fascinated by the mortal world. The diver taught the dragon princess the delicate art of cultivating pearls, a skill the princess then shared with her father. Impressed, Ao Guang decreed that the fishermen could keep their harvest, and in return they would teach his court the human craft. This tale transforms the Dragon King from an unapproachable sovereign into a being capable of negotiation and an appreciation for mortal ingenuity. These regional stories paint a more nuanced portrait where the cosmic power of the Dragon Kings intersects with local needs, human cleverness, and the quiet, everyday magic of a specific place. What other unique bargains and unexpected friendships were forged in the hidden corners of the ancient world? The celestial court was a web of delicate alliances and strict hierarchies, where the Dragon Kings constantly navigated relationships with other powerful deities. Their most defining bond was with the Jade Emperor, the supreme lord of the cosmos. While they were sovereigns of their own realms, they were ultimately his ministers, bound to execute his cosmic will. A direct command from the celestial throne was not a request but an absolute decree. When the Jade Emperor ordered a specific amount of rainfall for a region, Ao Guang and his brothers had to comply with precise, bureaucratic efficiency. This relationship was not one of simple friendship, but of divine duty and absolute subservience to a higher cosmic order. Their power was immense, yet it was always delegated power, a sobering reminder that even the lords of the ocean answered to a higher authority. This chain of command sometimes placed them in difficult positions, caught between the needs of the mortal world and the inscrutable decisions of heaven. A more complex and often cooperative relationship existed with the goddess of mercy, Guanyin. She represented boundless compassion, a force that could temper the Dragon King's righteous fury. In the story of the child god Nezha, whose rebellion led to the death of Ao Guang's son, it was Guanyin who frequently intervened. She acted as a celestial diplomat, soothing the Dragon King's wrath and negotiating for peace to prevent a full-scale war between the sea and the heavens. She did not command them but persuaded them, appealing to their wisdom and their role as protectors of the natural balance. In the journey to the west, it is often Guanyin who directs the Dragon Kings to assist the pilgrims, transforming potential adversaries into reluctant allies. She would ask Ao Guang to provide a magical rain or request Ao Qin to calm a turbulent sea, and they would consent out of respect for her virtue and her position in the celestial court. This dynamic shows that their power, while absolute in its domain, could be guided and influenced by higher virtues. Their interactions with other household gods, like the kitchen god, reveal the everyday integration of this celestial bureaucracy. The kitchen god, a humble domestic deity, would ascend to heaven once a year to report on each family's conduct. His report could include pleas for rain or complaints about a local drought. This meant that the words spoken by a family around their cooking fire could, in theory, travel up through the kitchen god, reach the Jade Emperor, and result in a direct order to a Dragon King. A farmer's muttered prayer for rain over a boiling pot could become part of an official celestial document that crossed Ao Guang's desk. This intricate system connected the most intimate human spaces to the vast power of the oceanic sovereigns, demonstrating that no deity operated in isolation. The Dragon Kings were pivotal cogs in a cosmic machine, their actions influenced by reports from minor gods and their duties dictated by the needs of both heaven and earth. How did these proud kings feel about their decisions being swayed by the observations of a deity who lived in a common kitchen chimney? Their divine existence was a constant negotiation, a balance of commanding their own kingdoms while serving a universe of interconnected powers. This cosmic chain of command reached its ultimate expression in the political fate of the nation itself. The same philosophical principle that governed the Dragon King's duties, the mandate of heaven, also decided the legitimacy of every emperor who sat upon the dragon throne. This mandate was not a permanent right to rule, but a conditional grant of divine authority, contingent upon the emperor's virtue and his ability to maintain harmony between heaven, earth, and humanity. The Dragon Kings, as ministers of the water cycle, became the most visible instruments for signaling the state of this heavenly approval. A prolonged, devastating flood in the Yellow River Basin was not just a natural disaster. It was a potential celestial indictment. The people and the court would see the overflowing waters as a clear sign that the Dragon King of that region, acting on higher orders, was withdrawing his support. The emperor's virtue was considered insufficient, his moral failings causing a rupture in the cosmic order that manifested as uncontrollable water. Similarly, a severe, widespread drought was interpreted as the heavens and the dragon ministers withholding their life-giving breath, a silent, terrible judgment on a ruler who had lost his way. The emperor's primary role was to be the intermediary between his people and the cosmos, and a failure to secure timely rains or prevent catastrophic floods was a direct reflection of his failed diplomacy with the gods. We see this play out in historical records, where emperors during times of crisis would issue formal edicts of self-criticism, publicly confessing their shortcomings and pleading with the dragon kings for forgiveness. They would lead the entire court in elaborate ceremonies, offering sacrifices at the grandest temples, desperately trying to realign their rule with the will of heaven and appease the aquatic powers they had evidently offended. The emperor's relationship with the dragon kings was therefore a mirror of his own legitimacy. A stable, prosperous reign with good harvests proved he held the mandate. A reign plagued by natural disasters signaled that the mandate was slipping, often providing the philosophical justification for rebellion and the rise of a new, more virtuous dynasty. The very weather patterns controlled by the four brothers were the barometer of an empire's spiritual and political health. How many dynasties began their ascent during a terrible drought, and how many saw their final days marked by a river breaking its banks? But these powerful beliefs were not born fully formed. The journey of the dragon kings from local spirits to cosmic ministers is a story written over centuries. Their earliest roots lie deep within ancient Chinese folk religion, a time when every river and pond was thought to possess its own distinct, often nameless dragon spirit. These early entities were not yet kings or bureaucrats, but capricious and highly localized forces of nature. A farmer might leave an offering for the dragon of his specific well, hoping to keep its water sweet, while a fisherman would pray to the spirit of a particular coastal cove. This was a world alive with countless independent water deities, each with a small domain and a volatile temperament. The first great step toward codification came with texts like the classic of mountains and seas. This strange and wonderful bestiary from the Han Dynasty began to collect and categorize these disparate spirits, giving them names, forms, and specific territories. Within its pages, dragons were documented as real creatures inhabiting real geographical locations, their appearances and powers described with a scholar's precision. This was a monumental shift, moving dragon lore from pure oral tradition into a written, systematized mythology, laying the foundational map for the aquatic world. Yet even here, they were not the unified, bureaucratic quartet we know today. They were still a diverse collection of regional powers, their authority beginning to be recognized but not yet fully organized into a celestial ministry. So how did these scattered regional spirits become the four brother kings? The answer lies in the powerful influence of imperial bureaucracy. As China itself became a vast, centralized empire, its people began to imagine the heavens in the same way they experienced their own government. The celestial realm came to be seen as a divine mirror of the imperial court, complete with an emperor, ministers, and a strict chain of command. It was a natural, almost inevitable, progression for the most important natural force, water, to be placed under the management of a dedicated cabinet of ministers. The four cardinal directions, a concept central to Chinese cosmology, provided the perfect organizational structure. The myriad local dragon spirits were consolidated, promoted, and assigned to govern the four great seas that bordered the known world. They were given the title of king and ministerial portfolios, transforming them from wild nature spirits into disciplined officials of the cosmos. This evolution reached its spectacular climax during the Ming Dynasty with the flourishing of vernacular novels. A work like Journey to the West did not invent the Dragon Kings, but it popularized and crystallized their modern personas for millions of readers. In its pages, Ao Guang was no longer just a name in an old text. He was a fully realized character with a personality, a magnificent palace, and a very relatable problem named Sun Wukong. The novel took the established bureaucratic framework and filled it with drama, humor, and unforgettable conflict, making the Dragon Kings accessible and engaging to the common person in a way that scholarly texts never could. Their journey from anonymous well spirits to the humiliated hosts of the Monkey King is a testament to the power of story, showing how mythology breathes and grows, constantly reshaping itself to reflect the changing world of the people who believe in it. Their ancient legends, once told in temple courtyards, now unfold on glowing screens for a global audience. The four dragon kings have successfully navigated the currents of time, finding new life and new interpretations in the vast ocean of modern media. In blockbuster Chinese fantasy cinema, they are often depicted with breathtaking visual effects, their serpentine forms rendered in intricate detail as they soar through digitally crafted skies. A film might show Ao Guang's court not just with actors in makeup, but as a fully realized, shimmering underwater city, bustling with CGI shrimp soldiers and crab generals. These portrayals amplify their majesty and power, yet they sometimes simplify their complex bureaucratic roles, transforming them into more straightforward, heroic or antagonistic figures to suit a faster-paced narrative. This shift makes their ancient power immediately accessible, translating celestial administration into epic visual spectacle. Japanese anime and manga have embraced these deities with a particular fascination, often reimagining them through a unique cultural lens. Here, the Dragon Kings might appear as powerful mentors, mysterious antagonists, or even as beings whose power can be fused with human technology. A series could feature a character who is a descendant of Ao Guang, struggling to manage their heritage in a modern high school, or it might depict the Dragon Palace as a parallel dimension accessible through a magical portal. These adaptations are not concerned with strict mythological accuracy, but with exploring the core ideas of immense power, ancient responsibility, and the clash between the old world and the new. They ask what happens when a god of the storm has to deal with the complexities of the 21st century, a question that resonates deeply with contemporary audiences. Video games offer perhaps the most interactive way to engage with these myths. A player might take on the role of a warrior challenging the Dragon Kings in a boss battle, experiencing firsthand the overwhelming force of a tidal wave summoned by Ao Qin. In role-playing games, a player's character could undertake a quest for Ao Run, delving into a sunken palace to retrieve a stolen artifact and gaining his watery blessing. These games do not just tell the story of the Dragon Kings, they allow you to live within it, making their power something to be actively confronted or harnessed. The kings become part of a dynamic world, their legendary abilities translated into game mechanics, a health bar that regenerates like a flowing river, or a special attack that calls down a monsoon. This interactive format transforms ancient reverence into a visceral, personal experience. How does it feel to face the scaled incarnation of the ocean itself, your controller vibrating with each of its thunderous roars? Even Western media has begun to incorporate these figures, though often blending them into a broader tapestry of dragon lore. In these stories, the Dragon Kings might be positioned as ancient celestials, keepers of a balance that is threatened by a global catastrophe. Their portrayal emphasizes their wisdom and their role as elemental guardians of the planet, sometimes losing the specific cultural nuance of their celestial bureaucracy, but retaining their core identity as sovereigns of the natural world. This cross-cultural borrowing demonstrates the universal appeal of their archetype, the powerful, ancient being who commands the fundamental forces of life. Contemporary literature, particularly the fantasy genre, has delved even deeper, exploring the Dragon King's inner lives and motivations. A modern novel might tell the story from the perspective of Ao Guang himself, portraying him not as a remote god, but as a weary CEO of the oceans, frustrated by celestial paperwork and the constant demands of both heaven and humanity. It could explore the political tensions between the four brothers, or imagine the drama of their underwater court with the complexity of a royal family saga. These written works have the space to restore the rich bureaucracy and the nuanced relationships that visual media sometimes flattens, offering a more contemplative look at what it truly means to be an eternal minister of the natural world. Through all these modern lenses, from the explosive action of cinema to the intimate character studies of novels, the Dragon Kings continue to evolve. They are no longer just figures of myth, but versatile symbols whose stories can be remixed and recontextualized to explore timeless themes of power, duty, and humanity's relationship with the world it inhabits. What new forms will these ancient sovereigns take as we venture further into the digital age? The myths of the Dragon Kings were not born in a vacuum, but from the very real and urgent experiences of an ancient people living at the mercy of water. The most powerful inspiration was the Yellow River itself, a waterway so immense and unpredictable it earned the name China's Sorrow. This was not a gentle stream, but a colossal, muddy dragon coiling across the landscape. Its behavior was a perfect mirror of the Dragon King's legendary moods. For years, the river could be a benevolent force, its seasonal floods depositing rich, fertile silt across the farmlands, a gift from a pleased deity like a gentle rain from Ao Guang. But without warning, that same river could transform. Torrential rains far upstream would gather into a raging wall of water that would burst through the carefully built dikes. The resulting flood would swallow entire villages, erase generations of farmland, and bring famine to millions. This was not a random natural disaster to the ancient Chinese. It was the wrath of the river dragon made manifest. The river had a personality, a will, and a terrible, destructive power that demanded respect and appeasement. The very struggle to control this river, to build higher dikes and dig deeper channels, was a physical, daily battle against a dragon that refused to be fully tamed. The legendary hero Yu the Great, who tamed the floods, was the archetype of this struggle, a human who managed to impose a fragile order upon the chaotic will of the water. The myth of the Dragon Kings gave a face, a name, and a court to which petitions could be sent for this otherwise impersonal and terrifying force of nature. How else could a farming community explain the sudden, catastrophic shift from life-giver to life-taker, if not through the changing mood of a powerful, sentient being? This relationship with unpredictable water extended to the coast where another kind of dragon reigned. The typhoons that roared in from the South Sea were the embodiment of Ao Qin's fiery temper. Fishermen would watch the horizon darken with a dread that was both practical and deeply spiritual. The approach of a typhoon was not just a change in barometric pressure, it was the arrival of a celestial army. The howling winds were the dragon's roar, the driving rain his furious tears, and the storm surge his command for the ocean to reclaim the land. These storms could arrive with shocking speed, upending boats, demolishing homes, and reshaping the coastline in a single, violent night. For coastal communities, the South Sea Dragon King was not an abstract myth. He was the very real explanation for this annual terror. His volatile nature, so different from Ao Guang's bureaucratic calculation, perfectly captured the essence of a typhoon, a storm that could be born from a calm sea in a matter of hours. The rituals held to appease him were acts of communal survival, attempts to reason with a force that seemed to operate on pure, untamed emotion. At the heart of it all was the fundamental, non-negotiable importance of water management. Ancient China was an agricultural civilization, and its survival was entirely dependent on controlling water for irrigation while defending against its destructive power. This daily, life-or-death struggle with the hydrological cycle demanded a system to explain it. The concept of the Dragon Kings and their celestial bureaucracy provided that framework. A drought was not a meteorological anomaly, it was a bureaucratic failure. Perhaps the local river dragon had neglected his duties, or maybe the Jade Emperor had issued a decree for a dry season as a form of celestial punishment. A devastating flood was a clear sign that the dikes and channels built by humans had failed to meet the standards of the water ministers. This belief system transformed the immense, challenging work of water management into a sacred duty. Digging a canal was not just engineering, it was an act of cosmic alignment, a way to help the dragon spirits flow in their proper paths. Maintaining the dikes was a form of devotion, a way to keep the dragon contained and pleased. The entire civilization was engaged in a constant, tangible dialogue with these water deities through their labor. The myths gave meaning to the backbreaking work, framing the human struggle to control water as a participation in a grand celestial order. It was a way to find agency in a world ruled by forces far beyond human control, turning farmers and engineers into partners in a divine plan. The language itself still flows with the ghosts of their presence. To this day, a farmer gazing at a parched field might sigh and speak of praying to the Dragon King for rain. The phrase endures long after the elaborate temple rituals have faded, a linguistic fossil of a world where every weather pattern had a name and a title. This is not merely a quaint saying, it is a cultural echo, a testament to how deeply these myths were woven into the very fabric of Chinese thought. The dragon itself remains the ultimate symbol of Chinese identity, a creature of luck, power, and cosmic benevolence. During the Lunar New Year, dragon dances still twist and turn through crowded streets. Their long, serpentine bodies a direct invocation of the life-giving, flowing water the Dragon Kings commanded. The dancers are not depicting a monster, they are channeling a celestial force, beckoning its positive energy into the community for the year ahead. The emperors may be gone, but the dragon continues to represent national pride and cultural heritage, its image instantly recognizable around the world as a symbol of China. This symbolic power extends into the modern psyche, where the Dragon Kings have evolved from feared sovereigns into archetypes of natural balance. In a world now facing the consequences of climate change, their stories feel strangely prophetic. They personify the delicate equilibrium between humanity and the environment, reminding us that water is both a giver of life and a force of unimaginable destruction. The ancient understanding that we exist in a negotiated relationship with the natural world, a concept the Dragon Kings embodied for millennia, is more relevant than ever. Their legacy is a cultural memory of respect for the elements, a cautionary tale about the price of arrogance when dealing with powers greater than ourselves. What lessons can we, in our technologically advanced age, still learn from these ancient custodians of the rain? From the tempestuous throne of Ao Guang to the frozen court of Ao Shun, we have journeyed across the four seas and witnessed a pantheon of elemental power. These four brothers were far more than simple rulers of water. They were the living, breathing embodiment of the world's most vital cycle, their moods dictating the fate of empires and the survival of humble villages. Ao Guang, the bureaucratic emperor of the East, commanded with celestial authority. Ao Qin's fiery passion mirrored the violent beauty of the southern monsoons. The profound wisdom of Ao Run guided the great western rivers, while Ao Shun's unyielding discipline held the power of winter itself in his grasp. Together, they formed a complete celestial cabinet, a divine ministry managing the pulse of the planet. Their stories gave humanity a framework to understand the terrifying and magnificent forces of nature, transforming floods and droughts from random events into narratives of celestial will, bureaucratic error, or divine punishment. This mythology provided a language for the ancient world to speak to the untamable elements, to find meaning in the struggle for survival, and to see their own imperial society reflected in the starry courts above. The Dragon Kings have sailed from ancient folk tales into classical novels, from temple murals onto cinema screens, proving that their power is as timeless as the ocean's tide. They remind us that the greatest stories are those that help us navigate our relationship with the world around us, finding both wonder and warning in the forces that give and take life. We would love to hear which of these legendary kings captured your imagination. Was it the tragic fatherhood of Ao Guang, the untamed spirit of Ao Qin, or perhaps the clever bargain struck in local folklore? Share your favorite dragon myth or the element of this epic journey that fascinated you most in the comments below.